Before we talk about rewiring the brain, I want you to picture something simple. Imagine walking into a room where the lights flicker unpredictably. Sometimes they glow warm and steady, other times they snap off without warning. And after a while, your body, it starts bracing even when the light is on because it's adapting at this point. It knows what's next. You don't trust the stability because you've learned that it can vanish. Now imagine someone asking you why you feel tense in that room. You wouldn't call yourself dramatic here, would you? You would say that your body adapted somehow. And that is exactly what happens in a trauma bond. Your system adapted to emotional flickering. It learned to brace and reach at the same time. And once the body learns that rhythm, it doesn't forget it just because the relationship ends or that you'd like for it to end. So today we're talking about just that, what's happening to you, and I'll be talking about what you can do to break this cycle within your system. So if you really want to start breaking off this trauma bond, watch this whole video, please and thank you. So welcome back everyone. And for any newbies here, I am Deanna King, and this channel is all talk narcissism and codependency. So with that said, let's jump right in. Have you ever wondered why your body still reacts to someone who hurt you as if they were the safest place that you ever knew? Why you can understand the damage, you can list the red flags, you can remember the sleepless nights, and yet something in you still pulls you towards them? Well, that pull, it's not sentimental, it's neurological. Because after prolonged emotional stress, your brain doesn't simply store memories of the relationship. It reorganizes itself around the pattern. Chronic stress hormones reshape neural pathways. Repeated cycles of connection and withdrawal wire anticipation into your reward system. Unpredictability becomes familiar, and the brain will always gravitate towards what feels familiar, even when it hurts. It's how the brain protects itself. When a relationship swings between affection and distance, warmth and coldness, praise and criticism, your nervous system goes into high alert. It's alarm, 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 alarm. Cortisol and adrenaline surge, preparing you to fight, fix, appease, or hold on. And then suddenly, relief arrives. A loving text, an apology, a moment of tenderness, and dopamine is released. That surge doesn't just feel good, it imprints. The brain links relief with the person who caused the distress, and a powerful loop begins. Stress, relief, reward. Stress, relief, reward. Stress, relief, reward. And over time, that loop, it strengthens into a trauma bond. It mirrors the same reinforcement schedule that makes gambling addictive. The unpredictability is what intensifies the attachment. If affection were steady, the brain would stabilize. But when affection is inconsistent, the brain chases it. Logic doesn't stand much chance in that state because logic lives in the prefrontal cortex. And during chronic relation stress, the survival circuits dominate. The amygdala, your internal threat detector, stands constantly for signs of rejection or withdrawal. The body remains slightly braced even during calm moments. Survival mode, right? You might notice that your heart rate might shift when their name appears on your phone. You might feel a wave of anxiety before you even consciously register why. And this is what we call conditioning. Your nervous system learned that connection equals risk and relief at the same time. It adapted to survive the unpredictability. And this is where neuroplasticity becomes both the explanation and the path forward, because you can change this. Neuroplasticity simply means that the brain changes in response to repeated experiences. What fires together, wires together, as Joe Dispenza often says. If chaos and affection repeatedly fire together, they wire together. If anxiety and intimacy repeatedly fire together, they wire together. The brain doesn't judge the pattern, it encodes it. And that encoding is efficient. It helped you stay connected in an unstable environment. It helped you anticipate mood swings. It helped you read micro expressions. It kept you vigilant and bonded all at the same time. But patterns that were protective in one season can become painful in another. When you step away from a relationship, the absence of the stress relief cycle can feel pretty disorienting. And many people describe it as withdrawal, restlessness, cravings, and romanticizing the good moments and forgetting the bad and the cost. That isn't imagination here. It is your reward circuitry adjusting to the loss of intermittent reinforcement. So now dopamine pathways that were primed by unpredictability now search for the next spike. They're looking for the next fix. It's an addiction in the body. Silence feels unbearable, not because silence is dangerous, but because your system was trained to expect intensity. So a calm day might feel boring or flat. A stable person can feel really uninteresting, and peace can feel foreign. And this is the part that confuses people the most. They ask themselves why they miss the volatility when it caused so much distress. That answer sits in the wiring. The brain becomes, or it became rather, accustomed to high contrast emotional swings and interpreted relief as love. So, how do you begin to rewire a system that learned to equate chaos with connection? Well, first, by understanding that the brain changes through repetition, not force. You can't shame a neural pathway into dissolving here. You replace it through new experiences that are consistent enough to form different associations. And I'm not talking about go find a new relationship here. I'm talking about working with the body. Safety first and foremost has to be learned. Safety has to be repeated, not merely understood, not here. It has to be, like I just said, in the body. The body needs to understand it. If chaos wired in through repetition, calm must wire in through repetition. When you practice somatic grounding, you are not performing a trendy exercise here. You are signaling to the nervous system that the present moment isn't a threat. Slow breathing lowers cortisol levels. Intentional exhalations stimulate the vagus nerve, which supports parasympathetic regulation. And over time, these practices, they start to reduce the baseline hypervigilance. That means that the threat detector doesn't fire as quickly. It begins to recalibrate. The brain that once equated anxiety with desire or connection begins to associate safety with connection. At this point, it becomes important to understand what we actually mean when we talk about somatic work. The word soma simply means the body in its living felt sense, not the body as an idea and not the body as appearance, but the body as sensation. Really important here. Tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, a clench in the jaw, or it can even be a flutter in the stomach, and even pain that doctors can't identify. You keep going to the doctors, they keep telling you nothing's wrong, but it's in your body, the trauma. When trauma bonding occurs, the attachment isn't stored only as thought, it is stored as sensation. The nervous system pairs emotional meaning with physical response. So when we say that we're rewiring the brain, we are also retraining the body's response in real time. Somatic techniques work because they interrupt the automatic stress relief loop at the level that it was encoded. So if the pattern was stress spike followed by emotional relief, then we introduce safety without the spike. One of the most powerful forms of somatic regulation is self-soothing touch. This one is really, really powerful. Place one hand gently over your heart and the other over your stomach, or wrap your arms around yourself in a firm but steady hold. This is not symbolic. It creates physical containment. I just did a video on this, so I'll leave the video in the link below if you're interested in the actual how they work, because it really helps with things like panic attacks also. Another grounding practice involves sensory awareness. Feel your feet pressing into the floor, not imagining it, but actively pressing. And you want to notice the texture beneath you. You can also hold something cold like an ice cube or a chilled glass and pay close attention to the sensation. You're teaching your body here. The temperature pulls your awareness into the present moment and it interrupts spiraling thoughts or disassociation. It anchors you in the now. Another one is shaking and trembling. That can also be deeply regulating. When the nervous system goes into fight or flight, adrenaline prepares the body for action. And if that action never fully discharges, which a lot of times it doesn't, the energy lingers. And you can intentionally shake your arms, your legs, even your torso for 30 to 60 seconds. And this isn't dramatic here, it is biological. You are allowing the body to complete a stress response that has been suppressed. Vocalization is another underestimated tool. A low, steady humming sound or a deep voo. I can't remember who's taught that one. But this tone, it creates vibration in the chest and throat. This stimulates the vagus nerve, which plays a central role in calming the nervous system. The sound doesn't need to be loud either. It simply needs to be sustained long enough for the body to register the vibration. Another one is slow, mindful movement also supports rewiring. This can look like gentle stretching, slow swaying, or practices such as somatic focused yoga or Tai Chi. The emphasis is not on performance or flexibility here, it is on sensation. The body often stores unprocessed stress in these areas. So when movement is slow and attentive, it communicates safety rather than demand. In somatic work, we're not trying to think our way into healing. We are giving the body consistent experiences of safety, and the brain starts to reorganize around those experiences. This tells the survival brain that there is no immediate danger requiring tunnel vision. The brain that learned to scan for threat can learn to reorganize safety, and the system that once braced for impact can learn to rest. Neuroplasticity after abuse is not about becoming someone new here. It's about allowing your brain to reorganize around experiences of safety rather than survival, because you're stuck in survival even after the relationship ends. When survival is no longer the primary organizer, creativity starts to return, clarity returns, choice returns, choice, remember that. And with enough repetition, what often felt magnetic can begin to feel distant. You might look back and realize that your brain was doing exactly what brains do. It adapted. And now it is adapting again, this time towards patterns that don't require chaos to feel connection. It widens perceptions and it reduces your hypervigilance. And over time, the body learns that activation doesn't require external relief. It can rise and settle on its own. And this is how the chaos relief wiring slowly loosens. Somatic work, it's not dramatic, it is repetitive, it's subtle. And that subtle repetition is exactly how neuroplastic changes occur. The body begins associating calm breathing, present awareness, and internal grounding with emotional intensity instead of pairing intensity with another person. It pairs intensity with regulation. And that is a profound shift in attachment coding here. And that shift, it doesn't happen overnight here. It happens through repeated experiences of being calm, of emotional attunement, and of self-trust. Self-trust is another neural pathway often disrupted in trauma bonds. When your perception was repeatedly challenged or dismissed, you learn to override internal signals. Rewiring includes listening to those signals again, because now instead of paying attention to the narcissist, you're paying attention to you. So when something feels off, you pause. When something feels grounded, you allow yourself to stay present. And each time that you honor an internal cue like that, you strengthen prefrontal regulation over survival reactivity. And this restores integration between thinking and feeling circuits. And over time, the gap between what you know and what you feel, it starts to narrow. The craving decreases, not because you forced it to disappear here, but because the underlying circuitry no longer relies on chaos for stimulation. None of this erases what happened here, though. It doesn't deny the attachment that formed. It acknowledges that The attachment was reinforced at a biological level, and that biology can change. The same adaptability that once bound you to unpredictability can now anchor you into steadiness. So, maybe for some of you, you might want to look into soma healing, especially for anxiety. There's so much new information out there. Anyway, I leave all of this here and I wish you all a great day. So be strong, be safe, and we shall see you in the next video. And oh, and please subscribe, like, and comment. Bye for now.